Today we want to talk about something that a lot of people struggle with, and that is depression. Petra has her own experience with it and her own story and her way how she could deal with it, and she's going to share with you her story.
I was suffering from depression since I was like 15, 14 years old until I was like 25. It was a very dark time because I was spending a lot of hours under the kitchen table in my mother's kitchen, like just laying there depressed, you know. And when I was investigating this topic a lot, I realized that I was extremely exhausted person. And a lot of young people these days are very tired, very exhausted, because there is a lot of demands on us, and there is a lot of brain in activity in today's world because of social media. So people are constantly stimulated with their phone through their phone with social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you know it as well. And I always say, hey, I want to go to relax now, and I hold my phone and scroll through Instagram, and then I feel even more tired than before.
It exhausts you.
It exhausts you. And Chinese medicine says that liver, which is creating energy in the body, is exhausted through the eyes. And it clicked for me all together, and then I read about depression and I realized that it's basically formed of two words: deep rest. So people who are depressed are not sick. Nothing's wrong with you. Your body, because it's your body, it's just communicating, hey, this is too much for me. I can't handle it anymore. I have to stop and just lay or relax or just give me some time off, please. You know, especially the obsessive thinking, especially if you have too many things to deal with, the body just says, hey, stop.
A constant stimulation.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I have to say that I have tried it on my own, and I realized that I was very exhausted young person, because when I hit 10 years old, when I was 10 years old, I basically started to be like considered as an athlete, and I was having trainings, and I started to train a little bit heavier when I was 13, and it was like morning before school, at school, then after school, and after training after school, I was even having one extra training at home. So it was like really a lot of trainings. There were no supplements, no special diets, nothing like that in the past, especially in my country. And there was a demand on me to be a good student as well, right? So I had to study too. And there is a lot of people watching this video who are really in this same demanding state of their life, because they are teenagers and now they have to, quickly orient themselves. Okay, world works like this. Okay, now I'm starting to be responsible for these things, and I'll be responsible more and more and more. It's so much demand in this world especially, and I have to be careful about this and that and food, and I can't eat this. Also adults have a big problems with these things, and imagine a child in this time which is developing to be an adult. And it can create so much confusion that the people are even suicidal later. Right?
It can really go to this extreme.
I was also like having these thoughts. I would never hurt me, but I was also having these thoughts when I was having my depressions. I also, and sometimes until now, I have these comments or little thought here and there, because it was such a hard time in my life. My parents always wanted the best for me. My father, as a karate master, wanted me to be athlete, and he didn't want me to drink and do things like that, and so I spent my teenage years in a gym. And my mother wanted me to be an amazing student, so I had to combine these demands, and I had to also figure myself out. What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Am I going to be a doctor, because this was the one option, or am I going to be, actress?
Pro athlete.
Or pro athlete, of course. I was a doctor, and pro athlete would be the best,
In combination,
in
even
combination. Yes. But every parents, like now we are learning, that it's not good to put too much demand on your kids, and at the same time not too little, and nobody figures it out really well. And so I started, because of the body was exhausted and couldn't regenerate well, I started to have a problem with ears. For 3 years straight, then it came to sinuses, 3 years straight, then mononucleosis, then thyroid issues, and it was on and on and on until I just couldn't train anymore. My body just said stop. My doctor said, hey, you have to stop training, and I had to basically stop when I was like around 16 years old. I had to stop, and I had like a big half-year pause. After that pause, I went back and I was training until I was like 17, because then I was going to the USA to study as a high school student. But until that time, I was having health problems, health challenges, which were keeping me away from my training. Even though I loved it because it was the only thing I knew. Performance, training, that was the only thoughts I had. So what I want to say is sometimes that the body already in those kids is saying, hey, I'm depressed, I don't like what you do.
I want to ask you also, you were saying you had problems with the ears and with sinuses, probably infection or inflammation. And how did that connect to depression in your case?
The body was so exhausted, and also my parents, it looked like for 10 years straight that they will divorce. And we were still moving from one place to another and back and forth, my mother and my father together, and then they were split. It was like weekly thing almost. It was such a huge demand on the developing body that it has to manifest somewhere. Of course, you don't want to hear something. That's why kids develop ears problems. Of course, you have a head full of possibilities and everything and inputs. So you have sinuses problems, right? It's the body communicating. You don't have to study books to understand that.
So there was also a lot of emotional stress because of the relationship of your parents. And how does the exhaustion and the emotional stress, how does it play together?
Exhaustion and emotional stress?
Because you had the physical exhaustion, constantly there were demands, you had to help in the household already from a young child. You had to train an athlete and study at the same time. And then you had the emotional component as well.
Like I know that if you are just having physical stress and you are totally fine in your home and you have plenty of time to regenerate, because in a sport it's really important to regenerate, but also in a normal life, right? And then the body can't regenerate this fast. The body can't, create new tissues and so on. And also, if you're developing the body and it has to grow, and then it has to heal, and on top of it you are doing sports like I did, and it has to regenerate, then it's quite a lot of demand for the body.
I can kind of understand a little bit better now that depression is really a huge exhaustion of the body and of the mind. Because when you just have no energy for anything and you tap your resources, you tap them, that you could feel depressed. Before I was more thinking that depression was for me always, I had just like a few hours of that I felt a little bit depressed, and for me it was always thinking about the past, something I wasn't happy about, or it was more thinking in the past, which I experienced as depression. This I can really see as it you're so drained of energy.
Mm-hmm.
How can you find joy in your life? How can you experience life?
Mm-hmm. I personally think also people say don't eat sugar, don't eat that, gluten, and I understand that. I think you should do everything. But then on top of it, for today's kids with so many informations, it will create another confusion and another stress because you have so many information like about don't eat sugar. Okay, my only pleasure, my chocolate or whatever the kid likes, or even adult, they like something and they have to get rid of that even, and plus the bread or whatever they like. And on top of it, it's just becoming so painful, the life.
And you focus then on one thing, so you have maybe diagnosis of depression, and then you think, okay, if I remove all the sugars, maybe it will fix it. But there's still emotional stress and physical stress. So what you said, the deep rest is probably the one thing that can have the biggest positive impact the fastest. I could imagine.
Yeah. Because if you will be in a high energy, if the body will have high energy, it will never become depressed. But it is not coming from laying in a bed really well, laying in a bed, drinking a tea and being on your phone or on your laptop. It
doesn't count, unfortunately. No. We say, okay, I'll go to relax a little bit, and you're on the phone. No.
You can just go and lay on the sun for a little while, or be in nature and look in the trees, or have a walk in forest without your headphones, and just be with yourself. And anyways, it's not relaxing, and it is relaxing, but it's not regeneration. When you walk somewhere, you have to really sometimes stop and just meditate, or I think meditate is the best.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes only laying and thinking about nothing, which is hard, is really good.
Especially in today's time, we're not used to it anymore.
Or just journaling, just being in a bed, no music, nothing, just your journal. You just scratch there something or paint there something, and then you lay again. It's also helpful.
Yeah, you can also just write down all your thoughts that you have, no matter what it is. Like, oh, I'm bored, this is stupid, why am I doing it? Just write it all down so it's out of your head. And
what helped me so much when I was 25 and I was really having depression a lot. I can talk about depression for really long because
10 years?
It was over 10 years, yeah. And it helped me so much. It was Bach flower remedies, especially the remedy mustard. So that helped me a lot. If I could, I would definitely rest. I would give to the body the rest and see in a few days if you have it better. But if you're resting, you can't think about obsessive thoughts, which are going to make your brain so activated that you can't rest. So play some meditations or do some journaling and put it on a paper. Look at it and just relax. There's nothing wrong with you, and you can overcome depression because I did that.
Yeah.
And it took very long time. And you know what? I overcame that depression, and I realized that I am still tending to go back to depression or to exhaustion, because it's such a huge program that I'm deciding to now absolutely end with that program in these times, because it's really painful for the body, and the body lets me know a lot that it doesn't like it.
You said it took really long as well for you. It's also because you didn't know that resting is so important. You were still going, right?
Oh, it's really hard for me to rest, and for me it's boring, but the boring
that's the affirmation until now.
Yeah, the boring is where the magic happens. The more you're bored, not on a phone, not on not TV and so on, the more you're bored, the more you're healing.
I'm smiling because that's the affirmation which she wrote in front of our toilet. So instead of being on the phone in the bathroom, you could read this. That when you're bored, that's where all the creativity happens.
So don't forget, deep rest, be bored, don't exhaust yourself through the eyes, and of course, if you want to go on top of it, magnesium, vitamin B, no gluten,
Bach flower.
Bach flower remedies, mustard. You can drink a lemon balm tea plus lavender tea and no sugar, and you will be much better. But
there's nothing wrong with you, and don't overwhelm yourself with all the things that you should do.
yeah,
Just focus on those essentials.
and the biggest diet is on thoughts.
Yeah.
And if you start to become overwhelmed, you will see that in some time you come back and you drop your energy so much because it takes so much energy that you just drop into depression. I hope that maybe you find a little inspiration about that.
Thank you very much for sharing this
You're
with
welcome.
us.
I am 100% sure that she has never been depressed.
No,
No.
you can always cuddle your dog, or we can hug Luna for you. Yeah, Luna.